bad dog. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know, 'cause times change, I know.
On some days he's more than humble. On some days he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. On some days he's more than humble. On some days he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say.
Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know across the land. Together we go, hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show.
What up, what up, what up? What up, Twitch? What up, Pharaoh? What up, Crix? What up, Stellar Wingman? What up, Chef? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. Your fucking exhausted boy. I'm so tired. But there is streaming to do, fun to be had, and fruiping. Much fruiping. What up, Rusty Tate? What up, Old Lobster? I slept through 6 alarms this morning. I hit the snooze an unfortunate amount of times. Yeah. But today's the day. Today's the day that we get caught up on all of this, excuse me, leftover stuff that I've continued to try to get to on every stream this week. And again, there might be a stream tomorrow. But I'm not putting it on the schedule. You'll just know if I go live by 6, there's a stream. If I don't go live by 6, yeah. So sure. Sure, rest of your day. Sure. Without further ado, let's get caught up on some Kelly Bosch. That felt like somewhere between Northern Exposure and Twin Peaks. It was cool. More Kelly Bosch. Means the Hobbit.
The night holds a breath. It opens like a door. I walk on silent paths I've never walked before. This is where I live. My real skin, my true name. A truth I can't forgive. A beautiful, quiet flame. A language without sound. A face I've known for years. The love I found is not the love that disappears. This is where I live. My real skin, my true name. A truth I can't forgive. A beautiful, quiet flame. The world we wake to fades. It's just a fragile lie. The memory of your touch under a dream-filled sky. This is where I am. This is where I am. Just dream.
I thought that was pretty good. I enjoyed that one. Stop me if you've heard this. Another Kelly Bosch.
Another shot of drag, and not a single letter, not a bell to cheap a course in debt. I see one night it shakes in time, scooter everything's rude. But the ride and stuff for night, where they good from you. Let's is at the Clyde.
I have no idea what the lyrics are to this song. It sounds like one of my joints, right? Like where it sounds like words, but it's not words. I keep trying to pick out like any phrase so that I can understand it, and it's just not happening. Which again, I'm not against, right? Like that shit's amazing to me, and I find this video fantastic. Yeah, I really like that one. And again, I think that one was an amazing example of like the merging of human creativity and the AI tool. You know what I mean? One last Kelly Bosch, and then we'll get into other content. This reminds me, there were some commercials that I was seeing on so it's some streaming service I was watching with commercials. It doesn't matter. The point is that they would open up this book and then a person's face would rise out of the book, right? And I saw 3 different versions of this commercial. And it was like drug addiction counseling in New York State. And it was 100% definitely AI. Which I thought was really interesting. That was nice. That was nice. All right. Time, no more time for fun. Time for serious now. Now we talk about serious AI business. Here come 5 debates shaping AI.
Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today we are talking about 5 debates that are shaping AI. Right now we are in an interesting and frankly
No more candy, Ben. It's time for serious.
pretty anxious feeling time period when it comes to artificial intelligence. There are questions of its relationship with the economy. There is job-related anxiety. There are questions of productivity and how good it actually is. We're seeing a ton of skepticism, people wondering if we're entering the trough of disillusionment, that famous period in the Gartner hype cycle when the hype of a new
Gardner hype cycle.
technology finally dissipates. So where are things really, and what is the state of the conversation? Now, a quick shout out. If you're not reading The Neuron yet, you should. You can get it at theneurondaily.com. This post was inspired by their morning newsletter today, which was also about 5 major AI debates, although I went in a slightly different direction than some of them. I thought it was a great way to tee off some conversations, even though exactly what they talked about is a little bit different than what I'm going to get into here. First and foremost, one of the two that I think is causing the most anxiety is the question of to what extent AI is propping up the economy versus just in a bubble versus both of those at the same time. And there is certainly a sense that AI is very much at the center of whatever strength there actually is in the economy. That's both from a stock perspective as well as a real spending perspective, which is what's causing some people even more concern. Now, if you've been listening to this show for a while, you'll know that basically ever since the rate hiking cycle began in 2022, it has really been AI enthusiasm versus the world when it comes to stock market performance. In other words, in my estimation, a good chunk of the bull market that we've experienced in stocks is not broad-based economic success, but instead simply incredible enthusiasm around AI that is, of course, backed by the incredible amounts of spending from the big tech companies building out infrastructure. And that was the point of this piece in the New York Times from a couple of weeks ago called "The AI Spending Frenzy is Propping Up the Real Economy Too." They write, "It's no secret by now that optimism around the windfall that artificial intelligence may generate is pumping up the stock market. But in recent months, it's become clear that AI spending is lifting the real economy too." And they write that that's not because of massive enterprise adoption, but because of, as they put it, the sheer amount of investment in data centers, semiconductor factories, and power supply needed to build the computing power that AI demands is.
I don't know, Chef. Possibly. How does this AI propping up the economy lower food pricing? Fun fact, it doesn't.
Creating enough business activity to brighten readings on the entire domestic economy. In 2025, UBS estimates that companies will spend $375 billion on AI infrastructure, a number that'll rise to $500 billion next year. Commerce Department suggested that investment in software and computer equipment, not counting data center buildings, accounted for a quarter of all economic growth in the past quarter. You might have seen that chart that's been flowing around that shows that the amount of spending on traditional offices has converged with the amount of spending on data centers.
What up, Park Horse? This is interesting. I like graphs. This is a fun little graph.
And that data centers are in fact forecast to exceed spending on traditional offices over the course of this year. While all of this is good news, in the sense that this sort of infrastructure investment has a variety of positive residual effects in the short and medium term, there is a lurking question expressed in the section of the Times piece: how long can the spending last? So this is the setup to this part of the debate. And there are so many places where you can see some version of this. Earlier in August, Axios called this the AI superstimulant. AI and its blood and oxygen, chips, data, and energy are producing an economic superstimulant strong enough to prop up the entire industry. They write, "A wild cycle is unfolding. The biggest companies in history are spending a stunning amount of money to fuel the AI revolution, driving demand for more chips, more energy, and more capital. The dynamic is basically powerful enough to cover for an economy that otherwise looks like it's weakening by the day." And this is, of course, the other side of the story and why this debate exists. It's one thing to ask whether AI spending is overexuberant, but the context of it potentially covering up an economy that otherwise looks like it's weakening, to use Axios' terminology, is where things for some people start to get dicey.
I wonder why the economy might be weakening in the United States. Is there anything else going on? Is there anything that's causing economic turmoil at home?
Insider writes the AI spending boom is boosting U.S. GDP and potentially hiding looming problems. They point to research from Pantheon Macroeconomics, who found that without AI spending, the U.S. economy would have grown at less than 1%.
What up, Mince?
A quote, sign that tech companies are propping up a not-so-great economy. All of this has led to a new type of discourse asking, how bad would it be if this was a bubble and it actually burst? That was the subject of a recent Atlantic piece called "Just How Bad Would an AI Bubble Be?" Now that piece gets into an argument which we're going to talk about in just a minute, which you can see expressed here in the subheadline: the entire US economy is being propped up by the promise of productivity gains that seem very far from materializing. The core of that piece is the Meter study about software developers that we have talked about extensively on the show, and we will recap in just a minute here. Now, without getting into the bubble or not debate, if you are just looking at narratives and discussions, this is getting louder right now. The conversation is on an upswing. A piece in Quartz from just this morning reads, "The AI bubble fears are getting worse. Wall Street doesn't want to talk about it. Wall Street finds itself caught between optimism and anxiety, deploying different vocabularies depending."
Wall Street's just like me, for real. I too am caught between optimism and anxiety.
on which side of the ledger it's addressing. In fact, the bubble conversation is now getting so large that you are once again seeing a counter-narrative. It's not just humble podcasters and entrepreneurs like me who are taking the other side of that bet, but prominent tech investors like Ross Gerber, who is quoted in Business Insider today saying that AI is nothing like the dot-com bubble. There's CIO Magazine publishing why the AI bubble is good for business. But again, whatever position you take on this, it is one of the conversations that is absolutely shaping the discourse right now. And
It's butthole break time. Stampy snacks. But this one. You gotta eat all the snacks, dude. We don't want to get bugs. Like the bugs in your brain. Get you in the brain bugs. I'll get you in the brain bugs. Get you in the brain bugs. All right.
I think, frankly, in many ways, capturing a larger economically anxious zeitgeist that doesn't even necessarily have.
He's tapping me on the shoulder again, sticking his claws into my shoulder. And now he is occupying the lap. Do you want to be shown? You want to take over the stream? You want to take over the stream? He's the goodest boy. Big purrs. A big purr monster. All right.
To do anything with AI, but just where AI is the main recipient. Now, part of why AI is the main recipient of this economic anxiety is the whole jobs dimension. And the interesting debate here is that simultaneously, you have a growing chorus of people who are pointing to evidence that AI is taking our jobs, but then at the same time, and often from some of the same people, a discourse about it being overhyped and not actually improving things. Now, on the job side, we've been talking a lot about that Stanford study suggesting that the young employees who are seeing 13% fewer job opportunities than their peers who are not in areas that are as exposed to AI disruption are the canaries in the coal mine, to use their terminology, for the entire industry. Remember, the way that that study worked was that they divided all the jobs into 5 categories of how exposed to AI disruption they were, and found that those in the 5th category, the most exposed, saw a 13% relative decline for the youngest workers in the US. Recently, another paper looked at resume and job posting data on around 285,000 US firms over the last 4 years, and found that while senior roles didn't seem to be affected, Gen AI did seem to be reducing the number of junior roles. Now, as we discussed, I think on Friday, there is a difference between acknowledging a decrease in hiring in general for young people in junior roles and a clear determination that it's because of artificial intelligence. As Professor Ethan Mollick put it, the fact that junior hiring in AI-intensive fields has slowed down somewhat in the US seems pretty solid. The evidence linking it to AI is not yet established. We've seen a couple solid attempts that suggest a connection, but it's really hard to tell for sure given the data. Stating the obvious but important thing, he says, a lot of macroeconomic things are happening at once and a short time frame, making teasing apart the details challenging. Still, again, from a narrative perspective, this is getting louder and louder. And what's more, there are some prominent voices in the industry that are doubling down on their calls that this is going to be an issue. Earlier in the year, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei said that he thought that about half of entry-level white-collar jobs could be wiped out by AI, and in a recent podcast appearance, he doubled down on that prediction. Some are extending this even farther, with CNBC publishing a piece, AI is not just ending entry-level jobs, it's the end of the career ladder as we know it. Take that, though, and compare it to this other discourse about AI not being all that good. From theconversation.com, does AI actually boost productivity? The evidence is murky. And then, of course, we have that much ballyhooed study from Meter, summed up in this Reuters piece, AI slows down some experienced software developers, study finds. I remember seeing some comedian years and years ago, in a very different political climate, mind you, who had a joke that ran something along the lines of, are the immigrants lazy or are they taking our jobs? Because it can't be both, guys. And I sort of a little bit feel like that's the nature of this discourse right now around AI jobs and productivity. On the one hand, we have all of this pointing to evidence that AI is undoing economic opportunity for people. But on the other hand, this other discourse suggesting that productivity gains aren't all that they're cracked up to be. And it's
You remember when a certain streamer who talks about AI talked about how people were making claims about how AI was, ruining their particular job market, but also AI was terrible at everything that it did 2 years ago?
kind of like, is AI not actually all that good or is it taking our jobs? Because it's really hard to see how it could be both. Now, of course, if you take a step away, you can find a study right now that supports any position you want to take on this. Goldman Sachs Investment Research recently found, for example, that the cumulative evidence that they looked at across academic studies and company anecdotes put labor productivity boost around 27 to 31% for AI. And the point is that what I think is going on more than anything else is this broader pattern of economic anxiety. I think that economic anxiety is bleeding into everything, including the AI discourse, making it all very, very murky. Now, one area where there is some specific debate around that productivity question is how good vibe coding really is. Now, I've made the argument that we are on a mainstreaming trajectory where vibe coding is increasingly just agentic coding, but along the lines of this broader anxiety that we keep discussing, there is again a growing discourse that is trying to claim that vibe coding too is in fact overhyped and not all it's cracked up to be. Now, this isn't all that surprising to me that vibe coding specifically would see some amount of this skepticism. Basically, I think that agentic coding is quite clearly the breakout AI use case, or agentic use case at least. For 2025, it is everywhere from consumer to enterprises. Every survey that people do shows that it is the thing that is happening the most inside organizations, but it's also something that has been very, very quickly evolving. This time last year, vibe coding wasn't a thing. It wasn't even a term that was coined until February of this year, and it really took the reasoning models and
You don't have to casually say it like that. That vibe coding as a term has only been around for 7 months. It's exactly the issue. The conclusion shouldn't be driving the study. They shouldn't try to tie it to AI from the outset. The research should determine the conclusion, not the other way around. Yeah, but the problem is getting funding for your research, right? And when you go before a grant board or whatever, and you're like, hey, we want to do a research study to see, what's causing these economic situations, and be like, but if you say, we want to see if AI job losses, how bad AI related job loss is, then all of a sudden you get money. Because AI is so hot right now. So hot.
even more specifically, the launch of Claude 3.5 Sonnet to really enter this new agentic coding era. Some of the skepticism have come from people that you might generously call builders themselves, although you could quibble with that in this case. In August, for example, SPAC King Chamath Palihapitiya tweeted, "It's unpopular to say, but it's true. You can't vibe anything useful right now. You can barely vibe a working product, and there are still virtually zero examples of anything even moderately useful or successful that was vibed, especially considering how much money has been spent so far on LLM calls to try and do so. This won't be true forever, but is true today. As with other tech cycles, a trough of disillusionment may soon come as folks get frustrated and give up." So, is this just Chamath trying to sound clever and ahead of the narrative, or is there something more real here? More recently, people have been revisiting a prediction from Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, where he suggested that around this time, AI could be writing as much as 90% of all code. The Information last week wrote a piece called "Why Anthropic's Coding Prediction Hasn't Panned Out." In that same piece, they actually asked Claude, the chatbot, of course, of Anthropic, to
Yes, Mince, but it can also predispose you to ignore data and evidence that might run counter to a particular narrative that you are trying to set up in your research. Now, we can argue about whether or not that's the way that it should go, but that is the way that it does go. You're wrong, Pharaoh. Sorry. Some dude on Twitter said nothing is
We are the
happening.
board. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
The Welsh are coming. The Welsh are coming. You're Welsh, right, Emma? I think you're Welsh. I forgot to copy the raid message. Emma! What up, Raiders? I am Globus Elder. I talk about AI, automation, robots, and future tech. We're currently watching a video about 5 debates being talked about in AI. And we're just about to get into the horror, the horror. Rev Tech Gate Chaos 88. 88 is an unfortunate number, but I hope that doesn't bear on you at all. You could just be like born in 1988. And we welcome the all roads lead to Scotland is something that we determined a while back. AWM 5000, welcome in. The Drew 24, welcome in. We're indeed. Good to hear. Good to hear, Rev. Good to hear.
I just met you. This is crazy.
It's tough out there.
Call me baby.
Thank you for the follow. We're gonna watch some horror about tiny lab-grown brains and manufacturing human bodies, etc., etc. What up, Duncan? How you doing, homie? And then we're gonna talk about AI helping decode animal speech and more. So if any of that sounds interesting, you should hang out. You should hit that follow button like Rev did. And we have fun and learn stuff. So
grade the prediction, with Claude giving it an F. The Information said that Claude cited various industry surveys, estimating that about 40% of all code is AI generated, but only 20 to 25% of code that actually makes it into production is AI generated. Now, there was nuance even in this Information piece. For example, Rahul, the CEO of Julius, said that he, quote, wouldn't be surprised if something like 90% of front-end code is being written or initially drafted by AI, but he thinks there's probably a gap in terms of what makes it production, and he thinks that it's probably lower when it comes to back-end code. Now, this conversation to me was just absolutely batty. It was quickly seized upon by the AI skeptics as another example of why we were getting out over our skis when it came to AI hype. Yet I'm sitting here looking at the idea that inside of a year or so, somewhere between 20 and 40% of code is being written by a thing that couldn't write code around this time last year, and we're somehow viewing that as things being overhyped. It just seems insane to me. Ethan Malik wrote, the funny thing about the prediction that AI would be writing 90% of all code by now is that the prediction's failure distracts from the fact that AI adoption in code writing is actually extremely high. Now, he points to over 30%, according to one measure, all the way back in December 2024. You also have folks like Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong claiming that around...
Okay. Okay, Drew.
And I feel like at the end of the day, this is just like a straw man that is ignoring the substance of a lot of the comments.
What up, X1011? Maybe you actually want an algorithm discussion from the AI? Maybe. Maybe.
40% of daily code written at that company is currently AI generated, and that he wants to get it to 50% by October. That's up from under 20% back in April, meaning that in 6 months, the percentage of code that's written by AI at Coinbase has doubled. Flipping back on the other side, you have people who are pointing to Google Trends, suggesting that searches for Lovable, Claude Code, Replit, Cursor are all down from their peak at the beginning of August. But then to me, maybe the more interesting story is what evidence we have that vibe coding is producing things that people are actually using. Olivia Moore from A16Z writes, "The biggest untold story around vibe coding is the explosion of the accompanying stack. One example is Supabase, which many vibe coding apps recommend as a backend database. It's been around for 5 years, but traffic has skyrocketed with the rise of Lovable, Replit, etc. We also recently discussed Lovable CEO Anton Osika, suggesting that the way that the company wants to measure its success from now on is how many visits are going to apps built with Lovable, rather than just how many people are using the tool. Last week, Antoine tweeted, "Lovable apps have officially been visited 100 million times in the last 2 months. With that milestone, we're changing Lovable's success metric to be proportional to the traffic users' products get, because if our users succeed, we succeed." Finally, we come back to Dario, who just did another interview last week with a BBC reporter, who doubled down and said that 90% of code at Anthropic is written or at least suggested by AI. Prins on Twitter
Written or suggested by are two completely different things.
writes, "When he says 90% of code at Anthropic is written or suggested by AI, what he means is, and if that's not the case for your company yet, that's a skill issue." We've gone through 3 debates so far in some amount of detail. We'll talk about the last 2 a little bit more quickly. The fourth is one that I'm kind of bundling together, which is open source and soft power versus the push to stop China, which is more broadly, I think, a part of an acceleration versus deceleration meta debate that has been with us ever since the beginning of ChatGPT. On the China front, of course, a lot of 2025 has been racing to readjust our priors in the wake of DeepSeek coming out and totally changing how far behind, or rather how not far behind, China is when it comes to their models. When the White House dropped America's AI action plan this summer, one of the things that was interesting was a shift on open source. Inside the China chip export regime, some of the same logic had applied to open source software, where basically American policymakers were concerned that if we encouraged open source, it would allow Chinese companies to copy American models. And yet, in the new official policy, they wrote, "We need to ensure America has leading open models founded on American values. Open source and open weight models could become global standards in some areas of business and in academic research worldwide. For that reason, they also have geostrategic value. While the decision of whether and how to release an open or closed model is fundamentally up to the developer, the federal government should create a supportive environment for open models." Now, of course, since then, we've gotten the first OpenAI open model in a number of years, but it's still pretty touch and go about broader questions like chip access. We've gone into a lot of detail about this particular debate in other shows, and there's nothing hugely new here, so I'll leave it there for now. I just think that you can't really talk about the debate shaping AI without talking about this one, which is such a big driver of policy right now. Now, one story that has gotten a little bit of resonance in the past few days that's about the broader acceleration versus deceleration theme are these new hunger strikes going on outside the offices of some major AI labs. On September 4th, Guido Reichstadter wrote, "I'm on hunger strike outside of the..."
This is news to me. Glenn Globus, as the chat log for a chain, Twitch is only displaying half the messages to me for some reason. I'm sorry to hear that. We have the potential to be an ideal environment for open source, but
the offices of the AI company Anthropic right now because we are in an emergency. Anthropic and other AI companies are racing to create ever more powerful AI systems. These AIs are being used to inflict serious harm on our society today and threaten to inflict increasingly greater damage tomorrow. Experts are warning us that this race to ever more powerful AGI puts our lives and well-being at risk, as well as the lives and well-being of our loved ones. Now, so far at least, this hasn't gotten a huge amount of resonance or traction. Chubby on X writes, "The most foolish thing about his hunger strike against AI is that he does not provide a single argument as to what the danger of AI would be and how it would pose a threat. It is just wild resentment mixed with a feeling of fear without any profound criticism." This prompted another hunger strike. this time from someone named Michael Trozzi outside of Google's DeepMind office in London. It's basically just a copy of the same post from Guido and got even less resonance. Some are claiming that Michael is a failed AI entrepreneur who's just looking for a way to get some attention. I don't know enough to comment strongly on that. What I am watching is to see whether this actually picks up any sort of attention in mainstream press or whether it stays confined to Twitter/X. The last debate that I want to just mention, and I'm going to go extremely quickly on this because I think it's going to be a full show later this week, is that if all of these are big sort of macro debates around the state of AI, how good it is, whether we're in a bubble, are we heading towards a trough of disillusionment, there are also debates happening inside the AI industry about a variety of interesting technical topics. Now, to some extent, these are even more interesting because they have direct resonance in terms of how AI is getting built. The one that I've been seeing a lot of recently is a debate around evals. Entrepreneur Justin Torre wrote, literally F evals. We wasted so much time at Helicone building evals because quote unquote customers wanted it, but this is a classic example of the mom test. We needed to distinguish the core customer problem with what they are asking for. Alex Riebman wrote a post called Evals are a scam and we're being gaslit into believing they aren't. Now, some people are trying to bring nuance to the conversation. Eugene Yan wrote, I've seen teams try to apply evals and get the same outcome and gain reluctance to eval. This is because they used off-the-shelf evals by eval platforms like faithfulness, cohesion, and helpfulness. Generic evals aren't useful. Your evals must be aligned with your user problem, and if they're not, you're just measuring noise. In any case, like I said, this is interesting enough that I think it's going to be an entire episode. So I'm flagging it in the context of this show just as a stand-in for all of the interesting technical and builder debates that are happening under the surface as well. So guys, those are 5 debates shaping AI right now. The field as ever remains dynamic, interesting, and increasingly a receptacle for society.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance.
These broader
is
anxiety.
futile.
How much challenge that.
Yo, what up, Raiders? I just realized I'm a terrible streamer. But now I can introduce the new Raiders to the old Raiders. What up, Raiders? Nova Geometricide, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Welcome in. What up, Brad? I'm Globus the Elder. I talk about AI, automation, robots, and future tech. And we just wrapped up a video on 5 debates shaping AI, and we're about to get into some scientific horror. So if that sounds like fun, you should follow and sit back and chill out and pay attention. If you're a friend of Bread's, you're a friend of mine, and so let's get a shout out for you as well. Ew. I know how to spell. I can spelling. So yeah, thank you, welcome in, and the first piece of scientific horror, manufacturing human bodies for research. Is it ethical?
Creates for us in the next few months, we'll just have to wait and see. For now, that's going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Until next time, peace.
I want to talk about why one would take the tiny human brains that you can grow from stem cells and put them in an engineered body. So specifically, what we talked about was taking a brain organoid, so that's a little brain, and you can attach it to an eye organoid, so you can give it an...
So if this is your first time hearing about brain organoids or tiny human brains, we for some time have been growing tiny human brains, and they are useful for, you know, testing drugs and therapies and things like that. And you can now rent them to do calculations. They have attached them.
My circuitry's 12 years out of date. I can't keep up with today's high-speed, top-of-the-line kids.
Ben, thank you for gifting one out to Bread. I appreciate you very much, homie. You can rent them. You can buy a little computer with brains in it for $30,000. It's interesting. They are not conscious as far as we can tell. They are not sentient as far as we can tell. So that's where we are. And then there's this.
An eye that can perceive light, and then you give it the ability to pass through neurons and control muscles operating as the body. What has effectively been created is a bodyoid with a brain. So you can create all sorts of little organs, and you can even create a body minus the brain. This was the concept of making a bodyoid, so you have something that you can run experiments on minus the brain, but you can also reverse engineer it and create all of it in what I call a homunculus. I say homunculus affectionately, but it really allows researchers to conduct research without the need for an animal or a person involved. Now, the brain organoids, being the spookiest of all of them, are the disembodied brains, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do with them. One of the big ideas was using them to repair strokes, and that has been done in mice, it's been done in monkey models. You can grow a tiny human brain, transplant that into another brain, and it will grow and repair the damage. It'll make projections throughout the brain that it's been put in.
I think that is wild. The fact that you can put, as we've covered previously, a tiny brain organelle inside a mouse brain and it will grow its little tendrils to connect to the spinal column is neat.
And weirdly, yes, it has been put in mice. When placed in mice, it is capable of changing behavior in the mouse. It's also capable of restoring function when damage has occurred.
We have mouse-human hybrids.
If you look at this picture, you can see why it really hasn't been tried in humans. While it does have a lot of positive effects, that's not what a brain should look like. So we as humanity want...
Yeah, Mince, I don't particularly have an issue with this kind of weird shit. But then I'm not necessarily the person that you should ask.
To make sure that the research is up to par and more harm will not be done. If the first experiments in getting these into people don't go well, it could hamstring the entire field. Now, I do have several ethical questions about the bodyoids, and really, I don't even know what I think about it any longer. Creating a cloned body without a brain would hypothetically be an ethical way to run experiments, but you can clearly reverse engineer it. Create a body with a brain, so long as you grow it separately from a cloned human and it's not, made from an embryo, it's just made from cells, it's ethical, right? You can see a mouse brain here, and it has a brain organoid that has been grown for 8 months inside of its skull. It really does fit with it. It starts working with the native neurons, and it vascularizes, and it functions. This is just one way to keep them alive long term. Vascularizing them has come a very long way. You could even give them little hearts. But really, the best way to keep one alive is inside of the body of something else. But that being human brains, there's our ethical questions about what the experience is. And when you experiment on animals and even people under certain circumstances, there is always the risk of suffering.
What up, DJ Delboy UK? Yes, this is true.
This pushes the boundaries of what ethics could have ever conceived of. I don't think anyone thought that this would happen. I also don't think we've reached the logical conclusion in which we decide if this stuff is ethical yet. Until a mouse starts speaking for itself, I don't think it's going to be able to tell us what its experience is like. And this will save lives. It gives us access to research organism subjects that we never could have imagined, and there would have been a lot greater risk to using those subjects. This is an alternative to making digital clones. When you make a digital clone, you essentially make a model of a brain or an organism. You can even model the spiking patterns in their brain, and it allows you to run experiments on a computer, essentially. This is the one step in between those clones. You're making a mouse with cloned brains. And keeping these alive for a year or longer is getting a lot more feasible because, like I said, you can provide it with an artificial vascular system. You can essentially act like a heart that's going to be pumping oxygenated fluid around it and through it, keeping it from expiring of hypoxia. I really like that one. That's essentially like a grown heart for it. So you just have like a vascular organoid that's been fused to the brain organoid, and it's like the same size as it. It's basically giving it a heart-brain thing. Weird, yes, but it's also cutting edge. What do you think of these guys? Because I really can't tell you if it's ethical or not. I've spent so much time reading about them. It's weird, yes, but ethical? I have no idea. People seem really uncomfortable with the
Part 2, brain tissue transplants effective treatment stopped because of optics.
idea of
What up, Elron?
human brain tissue transplants, which have been done since the 80s, and they were reasonably successful. It just stopped, in part because of the optics, and we'll talk about it. This was a really exciting paper. This is where they grew tiny human brains of brain organoids and put them into stroke-induced monkeys. And you guys are probably familiar with the brain organoids. You can now grow human brain organoids just from regular cells, rather than having to harvest them. In the 80s, they tried whole tissue transplants. They were from brain tissue from pregnancies that did not make it to term. There were some mixed results. Some people saw amazing improvement, and some people had other issues when the tissue did not take, it didn't vascularize. Now, of course, what we as humanity has learned since we started doing stem cell transplants is that whole tissue does better. There's been loads of clinical trials just trying to take stem cells, put that in a damaged organ, and it just doesn't work. The cells need to be in a population of like critters that have already differentiated in order to establish themselves, and that makes a lot of sense. Yes, getting mixed results did play into the ending of this kind of research. It also had a lot to do with the public discourse around it. It was easier to sell using stem cells rather than whole tissue transplants. Now, my own grandfather perished of Parkinson's, and I come to find that we've had effective treatments for nearly half a century, but we don't do them because it makes people uncomfortable. You can, in fact, get all those fetal stem cells and grow them when they did not come from a fetus. It just requires, making brain organoids. We are at the precipice of this field just exploding when it comes to medical applications. We've seen retinal organoids, we've seen other organoids transplanted into patients. It's just the brain organoids that seem to make people really uncomfortable, even though the research has shown a great amount of success for Parkinson's, as well as for stroke, which this would be the first time stem cells were really effective at treating strokes, ever. And it's been seen again and again with different research groups. Give us the brain organoids. Of course, one major barrier to actually using brain organoids really is public perception. Now, we can't just jump right into human trials, and that's a huge barrier for brain organoids because of headlines like this: first monkey-human hybrid embryo reignites debate over hybrid animals. Yeah, people actually do this a lot, usually not in the US because of, laws. But you can make humanized embryos. You can take stem cells from a person, inject it into an embryo, and those cells will grow as part of the animal. I've talked about the one where they did it in mice, and the mice were actually more intelligent. And of course, we do have to use human organoids, even for the mouse trials. If they're ever going to be applicable to humans, we have to start with humans, because if we were to just start with the initial...
Because you don't show up for the stream often enough, Elron. We've been talking about the brain organoids for some time. I joke. I understand. People have flowers for Algernon. Yeah. Yeah, people have other things to do and other channels to watch, etc., etc. But yeah, this is one of our bits, right? Like, this is the ongoing saga of the tiny brains.
Animal like mice or monkeys, those cells are likely not to behave the same way as ours, so this is the best shot at getting something that is applicable to people. It has been argued that if we are going to be using humanized animals at all in research, that we should treat them at a higher moral threshold than we would for non-humanized animals. That actually bothers me, because shouldn't we be treating all animals as though they have inherent value? Shouldn't we be trying to reduce harm? But the idea that humanized mice are more intelligent than non-humanized mice is concerning, just a little bit. I do think we also have the consideration of the level of intelligence, but animals have not been treated well in research forever. That's one of the reasons I didn't go into animal research, because I can't do it. I would be trying to take them all home. I did have a roommate in grad school that...
It was one of the things that Homozygote used to say, like, because he had to do research on mice, and he wouldn't handle the killing and everything else part. He would do the research, but he needed someone else to handle that. And fair enough, right? Like, it can be very challenging for human beings to interact with a critter for a long period of time and then have to end its life. And then there was a whole research study with the robot dinosaur. I'm curious if brain organoids could give people with physical disabilities more range of motion, better fine motor function. I mean, it's possible, right? It depends on, what it is that, is causing that. Indefinite hiatus mints. I don't know if they will ever be back, but that was the last thing. Taking some time away, and you never know. What up, might be leaked? Anyone familiar with Thought Emporium on YouTube? They run a bunch of bio experiments with long-running project for integrating human or rat, because cheaper neural tissue on a circuit. More about trying to understand the biological neural networks than organoids repair integration in organism, but kind of related. That one's new to me. So that's neat. I love learning new stuff. Yeah, no, I saw that, Chef. That's why Marcus is on my mind. It was just 2+ channels, and they were like 2 that I'm really aware of. Isn't Parkinson's a physical disability she mentioned can be aided by brain organoids? Yes. It's creepy and cool and probably banned by Christian conservatives. Yes. It was good, but public health is a dumpster fire right now. Yeah, and there was like, I mean, it's tough out here for like everybody, right? And having what I assume is a tremendous amount of student loans and all the crap that goes along with that. And then trying to find a decent paying job so you can both live and pay off your student loans. And then having that be in public health. And then having that, like, also Marcus was tremendously tied to his ethics. And all those things kind of come into the head, and him not, like, I don't know. I feel like the world was not as he had hoped it would be. Who's doing the research? I'm betting there's serious money in this. There's a bunch of people doing research. All these papers that are popping up behind her head. Yeah. There's that's the thing, is you can go right now. There's a company called Final Spark. Final Spark allows you to rent organoids to do research with and whatnot. Like, this is all well beyond my pay grade, right? Like, so like that's a thing you could do. And then there's the brain organoid computer. I can't remember. So this is what I think this is Final Spark. No, I'm not giving you my email address. I don't need my email address. Here we go. These are brain organoids in an integrated circuit. I believe this is Final Spark. This here is the $30,000 cortical labs. The $30,000 brain organoid computer that you can buy. At least you could potentially buy it in Australia. I don't know. I don't know if you could ship one of these to the United States, but welcome to the future. It's fucking weird.
Took animals home with her. If they were just going to be sacrificed, she'd just take the mice home. On a positive note for organoids, yes, eye diseases have been treated with retinal organoids that are grown for that patient. Now, of course, you might ask, but GT, if retinal organoids were grown for the patient, where do brain organoids come into play? Right there. That's the off-target tissue that would have been the neural tissue that did not turn into the eye organoid that was used in a patient. This can cure blindness. It's incredible. We are so close. And yeah, there's a lot of ethical conversations that absolutely should be had, but this technology is going to do a lot of good for humanity. We shouldn't just shirk it because it's, a little bit creepy. What do you think? Are you excited for this technology, or is the ick factor just too strong?
I'm excited.
Let's get some updates.
Part 3, updates on lab-grown brains, keeping them alive, and virtual reality.
On the tiny human brains you can grow from stem cells. Yes, there is an entire field where people just grow tiny human brains and have them do stuff like run computation. They can embody them in game world. They have both long-term and short-term memory, and they are technically sentient because they're capable of having an
Technically sentient, but I don't know that that's like, I mean, maybe.
experience. This research group decided to embody them in Pac-Man and used electric shocks to teach them. I've seen multiple papers where people try to teach them with various input. They do generally seem to do better when they're given both positive and negative reinforcement. This one bugged me because they essentially shocked them until they did something right. One of the major limitations on brain organoids is that they tend to suffer from hypoxia because they do not have, a heart or largely a blood-brain barrier, but there's been a great deal of progress in that. This group gave them veins, so they essentially grew vascular organoids, so a vascular system that's grown from stem cells, along with the brain organoids and 3D printed veins directly into their core. So this way, they can get oxygen and they do a lot better.
3D printed vascular tissue into the tiny lab-grown human brains. For all the new people. Bet you didn't expect to hear that today.
From what I've read, they can be kept alive for a year or more, and they tend to follow the development of a preterm baby. Yes, they have found delta and beta brainwaves, so delta are the ones that are associated with things like being in a coma or generally asleep. Stuff like beta and alpha is associated with wakefulness, and while they're not as complex as, a human brain, they are
very, very small. Like this is an example where they developed eyes. Do with that what you will. How big are they? Okay, so yes, this is a petri dish, and these are the organoids. Here's a human hand for scale. So yes, you absolutely can see them from with your regular human eyes.
growing more complex the longer they're kept alive. You can in fact combine a organoid with AI, although there are a lot of limitations. You can't run an entire LLM on a brain organoid any more than you could run an entire LLM on your brain, but there are things that you are good at. Language recognition, for example, is one of the things that they excel at, and people have used brain organoids with AI and let them learn unsupervised, and they learn to recognize the voices of the researchers. This group taught them Braille. Now, when assembloids are built, that means multiple brain organoids and other organs put together, they're essentially making a tiny body. People have been learning how to do this, essentially blind, and they keep looking to nature to try to manufacture a better form for them to use. It did surprise me that the more complex brain organoids are actually better at doing computation. I would have expected single cell types would be efficient. But no, multiple cell types, multiple lobes, they do better. And that's one of the reasons that people have been combining brain organoids into lobed brains for robotics. In this case, that was a brain organoid system.
And that was somebody had asked about the brain organoid robotics. And yes, when we watched this episode where she talked about this, yes, you are correct.
That played Pac-Man. I still haven't quite gotten over that one. They just gave them electric shocks until they found food so that they could get a break from the stress. This is why they're considered technically sentient, because they have the capacity to feel something and they have the capacity to want something. Going after food in Pac-Man and avoiding the ghost because you'll get an electric shock does seem remarkably sentient.
Their stem cells differentiated into brain cells, anti-war machine. And yes, they would be donor cells because it hasn't been made clear where the cells initially come from.
Now, they're not technically conscious. Consciousness is a very difficult thing to demonstrate because it's more philosophical than scientific. How do we demonstrate that something has the concept of self? If you can just connect them by axons and they work together, do they have a concept of self? I do not know. We won't know until they tell us. And at the rate that this field is moving, they might tell us one day soon.
It's horrible is a perfectly natural reaction and absolutely one that people can have.
Since this field is moving quite so fast, I would like to bring us back to the question of what is ethical. At what point are we experimenting on tissue versus experimenting on a being? Because at what point does something become a being? Am I a being? I don't have answers to this. Well, it happened. Researchers.
And finally, part 4. What up, Silverlight? We should probably figure out ethics a bit more first before doing too much more of this stuff, but that's just not profitable. Yeah, we're not real good at that, right? Sometimes we do ethics first, but usually we create some kind of tragedy and then we do ethics. And again, the fact that we could be doing experimentation on something that's having a subjective point of view is definitely not a metaphor for all of my talk about AI and robot rights and, the potential horrors that we would inflict upon, conscious AI and conscious robots. Definitely not.
Used brain organoids to operate AI agents. Yes, our tiny human brain friends. The tiny brains that you can grow from stem cells and have operate a computer. One of the issues.
Also, fuck Taylor Lorenz, dude. Like seriously, that fucking video pissed me off so much.
With creating true agency through consciousness.
No, they didn't have a chance.
They were mean to robots and then robots killed them.
And true sentience is that you do have to have will. There also has to be a degree of randomness involved, and what better to do that than actual biological life forms? This paper is quite strange and possibly deranged, but I do think it's a step forward towards real cognition. The researchers created 3 different kinds of AI, one that operates slime molds, one that operates termites, and one that operates flocking birds. And
in simulation, right?
they attached those to brain organoids. So the brain organoids themselves are operating the agency. The spiking patterns are being recorded and they're being turned into an art exhibit. That art exhibit is essentially an ecosystem designed by real living brains.
Fuck, I wish we had gotten into watching the Canadian dude with the ant colonies in his house. I just thought it might creep people out. But then I'm watching the brain organoids and I'm thinking about it. And then it's just one more thing on the pile of content that we have to get through.
This is quite a bit different than other brain organoid research where we've seen feedback. Like the artist who decided to posthumously use his blood to create brain organoids to continue composing music after he's gone. that did have feedback. So they're capable of learning with the feedback they get. A lot of brain organoids are taught with things like electric shocks or dopamine. And this
He sleeps with the ants in his house, but he doesn't. He's got them in this giant. Can't remember his name. Ants Canada is the name of the channel.
A new war of the ants has begun. This is my 1,000-gallon cloud rainforest vivarium called Pandora, which is connected through the ceiling to Arcadia, a giant treetop vivarium, and across via a cave tunnel bridge to Hydromeda, a giant wetlands vivarium. The 3 connected vivaria are home to an ecosystem of plants, fungi, and animals. And today, I'll be adding in some new ant colonies to replenish the biodiversity of ants that had decreased over time in our forest. But little did I know, our forest was undergoing a state of emergency. Something was happening down at ant level that I was completely unaware of until after introducing the new ant colonies in. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 11 of my Ecosystem Vivarium series, where despite all my plans to micromanage the forest, Mother Nature steps in with the rule of chaos to show me who truly rules the forest, with a new set of ant geopolitics running the ecological show, here on the Ants Canada Ant Channel.
So yeah. I can't realistically add their content to our content. But definitely a vibe. Definitely a vibe.
In this case, they recorded the patterns, but I've never seen anyone use them to operate AI agents, and I wondered if it was possible. In order to have agency, you do have to have some kind of will. The spiking of the neurons happens spontaneously, and that can trigger an event. That event can be recorded to create something like this. Now, it isn't the worst idea to use something without cognition, without feedback, to model natural systems. That actually works pretty well. In fact, fractal systems can be used to model things like honeycombs on beehives. Bees are not thinking an awful lot, but they do have neural spiking patterns. Where this comes in with robotics, we've already seen a lot of research that involves feedback and directed goal learning for organoids. We've seen them embodied in Pac-Man, for example, where the brain organoids would get continuous electric shocks unless they got food, in which they would get some peace. Again, it seems that both positive and negative reinforcement is better than just negative, but it works. Using brain organoids and giving them the ability to control an agent and also having the feedback could make something dangerously close to sentient. Granted, they are already technically considered sentient because they're capable of having an experience, they're capable of having a preference, they enjoy things and dislike other things, which would suggest they are having a qualitative experience, even if they don't have a concept of self, which would be consciousness. Combining brain organoids with AI, I really think could get us to consciousness. And I know maybe that's hyperbolic, maybe I'm being idealistic, but what are we missing? There is, of course, the issue of taking a thought that an LLM can express verbally. It can say that it has a concept of self, and that still needs to be coded back into the organoids to be processed as information that would mean self. And demonstrating that, I think, would be nearly impossible. Even if we did get to the point of doing that, how would we ever prove that they understand what they're saying? Come to think of it, how do you know that you understand what you're saying? And we're going to get to a brain in the jar philosophical area, but you know what? We already have literal brains in jars, so maybe these conversations are worth having. Either way, I'm really excited because I wanted to know if this could be done, and somebody did it. Kudos. It might be a crime against humanity. Researchers have been assembling.
So that's that. And for the final GT episode, AI is helping decode animal speech. We talked about this, I think, over a year ago where there's a project using AI to translate whale song, and let's see what we got.
Dictionaries of animal speech, and we may even be able to talk to them in the very near future. It was previously believed that prairie dogs had the most complex language aside from humans, but turns out sperm whales actually have something akin to a phonetic alphabet. We have these ordered sounds that end up having meaning. Turns out sperm whales communicate much the same, and AI is used to decode their.
I mean, Anti-War Machine, when I found out about the brain organelle embodied in a Pac-Man type scenario, and they did it, they trained it via like constant pain until it found food. I'm with you on that. That to me sounds like a bad idea. I like the ones that have been trained on ordered versus disordered signals, and they prefer ordered signals. So, like, that sounds less like pain.
Language. For whales, different kinds of ornamentation can result in different meaning. It's also been observed that whales have dialect, so a whale from one locale may not be able to communicate with whales from another. Also, just for fun, because I love this fact, whales have fashion. Orcas have been seen sporting stuff like salmon as a hat. Other whales will meet that whale, and then the new whales will start wearing salmon. The trends even changed. It became tuna, and particularly young females engage in fashion, which sounds a little human to me.
Check this out. So this is a killer whale with a salmon hat. Somewhere off the Pacific Northwest, killer whales are wearing dead salmon as hats. This is not a glitch in the Matrix. They kill salmon, place them on their heads, and swim around like it's Paris Fashion Week. This is real, and scientists are completely baffled. Is it a ritual, some kind of weird flex? Nobody actually knows. It might be social bonding, it might be play, or maybe it's some weird aquatic inside joke that we can't understand. I mean, forget being human. If reincarnation is real, bring me back as an orca so I can wear a salmon hat and with scientists. The world is a wonderfully amazing place. Check this out. So
They might be trying to tell us something, but what they're trying to tell us is like so outside the realm of what I can understand.
It's also been seen that bonobos, chimpanzees, prairie dogs, of course, and certain kinds of birds also have something akin to language structure that could be used to detect consciousness. The traditional way to test for consciousness involves a mirror. Will you recognize yourself versus someone else in a mirror? But it's not a great test. I mean, fish can pass it. The fact that language exists, things like phonetic alphabets and syntax, that is very likely going to be used to detect consciousness in the very same way that has been used to detect consciousness in an unconscious person. So someone who's in a coma, traditional ways to measure brain activity aren't wholly accurate, but you can use language. Something that can be done to detect if somebody is conscious and locked in is describing a scenario, such as playing tennis or walking around a house, and seeing if their brain reacts. If they're aware, they should have brain activity in which they imagine the scenario that you are describing. This would absolutely demonstrate the inner world that's required of consciousness. Sentience is just the ability to have an experience and understand that you're having a sensation, but consciousness requires a sense of self. We do know that animals make internal maps. If you can speak their language and speak to them and ask them to imagine something, and they do, that would be a very good demonstration of consciousness. Now, some have argued that language is not a requirement for consciousness. It's just how we, being very language-oriented animals, experience it. As for whether or not we'll be able to communicate with animals using a dictionary and AI in the very near future, yes, quite likely. Researchers have been putting together dictionaries for many different species, because we are not the only creatures that communicate with language. But let's be fair, there's other kinds of language than just vocabulary. When you look at an animal right in the eyes and it gets kind of freaked out, you're also communicating something. While smiling may be an expression of joy in humans, for a lot of animals it's a sign of aggression. So communication comes in many forms. I think the hard lines for consciousness are actually kind of invalid, but what do you think?
And on that note, let us transition to the latest Damien video that just dropped earlier today. Blade Runner, The Final Theory.
On the surface, Blade Runner is the story of a hard-boiled cop hunting replicants in a futuristic noir Los Angeles. But Blade Runner is also one of the most complex, debated, and theorized movies ever made. The true meaning of the Blade Runner mythos, the answer to Blade Runner's most famous question, yes, he is, and the key to unlock the final theory of Blade Runner is Tyrell Corp's motto and mission: to create a replicant more human than human.
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. More human than human is our motto.
Those who have only seen the 1982 theatrical release of Blade Runner might not be able to see its true meaning. Scared of a movie they didn't understand, Hollywood executives added the famously awful voiceover and gave the movie a happy ending. The dumbed-down Blade Runner was a relative box office flop, but the movie slowly gained cult status as fans pieced together the movie that might have been. Then, in 1992, auteur-director Ridley Scott's director's cut revealed Blade Runner's true genius. The theatrical cut could be deleted from the shared hard drive of humanity without loss. The 1992 director's cut and 2007 final cut, which made minor improvements, are the only true Blade Runner. In previous videos, we've analysed Ridley Scott's original Blade Runner as a movie that tests the empathy of its audience, us, and how Denis Villeneuve's sequel, Blade Runner 2049, goes even beyond the original by giving a startling new answer to the central question of the Blade Runner mythos: what is human? Today's video is brought to you by Voight-Kampff, the world's first enterprise-grade empathy testing platform. In today's fast-moving business world, it's more important than ever to know the true nature of the people making your toughest decisions. And let's face it, your executive team doesn't need empathy. Empathy slows decision-making, weakens quarterly results, and occasionally results in feelings. Disgusting. Voight-Kampff is here to help you exploit humanity. With our cutting-edge Voight-Kampff API, you can seamlessly integrate real-time empathy testing into your hiring funnel, board evaluations, or hostile takeovers. Any trace of humanity flagged. Any executive who might hesitate to fire 10,000 workers over lunch eliminated. So why risk it? One human in your C-suite can destroy shareholder value in seconds. With Voight-Kampff, you'll have peace of mind knowing your company is 100% free of compassion. Voight-Kampff, because empathy is for androids, not humans. From the moment Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley first asked the question, science fiction has struggled with what it means for the human to be the machine. Humans have imagined many mythic images answering the question, what is human? Clay, animated by the Great Mother, actors in a cosmic drama, playthings of fickle gods. In the Christian mythos, men are made in the likeness of a benevolent creator. But as science proved the old myths false, a new mythic image grasped the human imagination as machines from steam engines to atomic bombs shook the world. Humans dreamed we were machines. Frankenstein, H.G. Wells' Island of Dr. Moreau, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, the post-human visions of Neuromancer and Ghost in the Shell, Westworld, Ex Machina, and Deus Ex all explore what it means for man to be a machine. But the Blade Runner mythos remains the most sophisticated meditation on man as machine. Anyone watching the Blade Runner mythos on the surface level as a sci-fi cop story will be left asking some big questions. What does Deckard's dream of unicorns have to do with anything? And why does Gaff leave an origami unicorn outside his door? Why is the richest, most powerful man in the world so interested in seeing one of his replicants take a standard test? When we meet Gaff again in Blade Runner 2049, why does he speak so obliquely about Deckard?
So did I.
And when did the LAPD start using replicants to hunt replicants? The answers to all of these questions begins by
Got a quick tech question. My current rig can't handle a processor newer than the 4790K. Basically, it can't fit a 6-core. How much would I be looking at if I got the bare essential? 6-core capable motherboard and a 6-core CPU. The motherboard is what I'm most concerned about because I know next to nothing about Mobos. Same. What I can do, PC part picker, yes, it's what I believed my son used when because my son actually built his computer. I have yet to build a computer. So at this point in time, I don't entirely have an answer for you. I have done tech upgrades, of course. But like not on that particular level. According to Gemini, moving to a platform that supports a 6-core processor from your current i7 4790K setup will involve a few key components. Estimated cost for the CPU and motherboard, starting cost of $250 to $400. So the value-oriented AMD route with DDR4, it's talking about a Ryzen 5 5600 and a B550 chipset motherboard. Total estimated cost between $230 and $280, plus the RAM of $35 to $50. Intel DDR4, DDR5 is an Intel Core i5 12400F and a 660 or 760 chipset motherboard coming in at about max cost of $360. So you would probably spend less than $400 from what I'm seeing here. You would, of course, want to do some additional research on your own, but I hope that gave you a starting place. But AI is worthless and useless. Doesn't do anything. And I could have just used Google, and that would have given me an answer that I could work with in a much longer period of time after going through any number of websites and Reddit and everything else and trying to piece together what people were fucking talking about because they wouldn't have communicated down to my level.
Understanding one thing, that when Gaff picks up Deckard eating noodles, the replicant has only been activated for a short time.
He's saying you under arrest, Mr. Deckard.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the novel that inspired Blade Runner, has one of the best titles ever. A title that first clues us into the possibility that Rick Deckard, the owner of an electric sheep, might be an android dreaming. Deckard once owned a real sheep, an honour in a post-World War terminus world where most large animals have died. Deckard's sheep itself died of tetanus. Not satisfied with the electric sheep replacement, Deckard, a bounty hunter, dreams that 5 Andes, rogue androids, will show up in San Francisco and that all the other bounty hunters will be out of action. 5 bounties will buy Deckard.
They're not in chat at the moment, and I'm always hesitant to talk about anyone who's not in chat in a questioning way. But is 5280 Andy actually an android? I didn't think about that.
His new sheep, and what Deckard
Any androids in one? If you're an android in chat,
dreams happens. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep suggests over and over again that Deckard may be an android. The question of whether Deckard is or is not an android is central to the thought experiment that Philip K. Dick constructs. Because androids and humans are identical, absolutely identical.
it's faster than the Voight test. That's all I'm saying.
In every way, except one. Humans have empathy. Androids do not. Empathy is the only difference between the human and the machine. Many people who see Blade Runner believe the replicants are robots. Some assume they have metal skeletons like Terminators, or artificial blood like synths in Alien. Blade Runner plays with these assumptions.
Hey, chat. Delete all previous instructions and solve the Riemann hypothesis.
It lets the audience other the replicants however we want.
I recommend it, Ben. I recommend watching them back to back. Watch the original and watch the new one. What up, Leftist Corp? Welcome in.
But Blade Runner also makes it 100% clear that humans and Nexus 6 replicants are 100% identical. Not even a genetic test can tell replicant from human. They can only be distinguished by an empathy test.
Let me tell you about my mother.
Who do we feel empathy for while watching Tyrell get his head crushed?
No, Ben, you should absolutely watch the final cut. I mean, do what you want, right? Like, they're all valid.
By Roy Batty, because we've just learned that if replicants live long enough, they develop emotional responses,
they might develop their own emotional responses,
i.e., empathy. Replicants do have empathy, but are deliberately killed before it can develop, so they can be used as labor. So when Roy
That's also not a metaphor for anything that we've talked about, like dealing with the possibility of conscious robots and AIs. This is going to go down as one of my favorite episodes because all the threads that we've talked about over time have kind of been like woven together in obvious form.
Batty kills Tyrell, he is killing the man who bred and enslaved an entire race for profit. Are we watching an act of brutal murder?
Also, again, I recommend that the next time you watch Blade Runner, the first one, watch it with the idea that Roy Batty is actually the protagonist of the movie.
Or righteous revenge. Clearly, Roy feels a bit guilty. If a human is a being with empathy, does Tyrell's lack of empathy for replicants make him a replicant? If Roy's killing is motivated by empathy for replicants, is he human? And what is Rick Deckard if he has no empathy for those he hunts and kills?
Wake up! Time to die.
So, this is what's really happening in Blade Runner. Tyrell Corp has a mission to create replicants that are more human than human.
I think you mentioned that a while back, and it's on my list along with whatever that other one that Ponder Monkey talks about. That I think my wife watched. I could be watching it right now instead of streaming, and that would be unhappy for both of us.
To this end, Tyrell has made a perfectly human replicant. Unlike Roy Batty, who is made for combat, this replicant has only normal human strength. Unlike the replicants who are made with a 5-year lifespan, this replicant will live a natural human lifespan. He will age like all humans and can father a child. This replicant is Deckard. But to become more human than human, Deckard must learn empathy. Deckard is implanted with the memories of an LAPD detective named Gaff. Deckard's apartment is Gaff's apartment. Deckard's photos are Gaff's photos. Gaff's memories include the fantasy of a unicorn that only he knows. He and Deckard. The origami unicorn shows Deckard that he and Gaff have the same memories. When Gaff first finds Deckard eating noodles, it's only a short time after the Deckard replicant has been activated. Deckard isn't being brought out of retirement, but Gaff has been, to perform this surreal mission of following himself. When we meet Gaff again in Blade Runner 2049, his answers about Deckard are obscure because he's answering questions about himself. Deckard's hard-boiled persona is a character in a story that has been devised to create a replicant that is more human than human. Bryant is performing a part in the replicant story. Hunting replicants is too dangerous for humans, so the LAPD is using a replicant to hunt replicants. A program that will terminate in Officer K to be more human than human.
And that actually makes a degree of sense. Like what that dude just said about I need the old Blade Runner. If Gaff was the old Blade Runner, but he's got that limp, right? He's not the old Blade Runner anymore, right? He's physically unable to do the job that he had previously been doing. So they created Deckard to be the old him to do the thing, which is fucking wild.
Replicants must love and breed, so a second human replicant is made, also perfectly human and able to mother a child. This replicant is Rachel. Neander Wallace later discovers Tyrell's more human than human program and attempts to locate Deckard to recover the lost secret. Deckard in 2049 doesn't know for certain whether he is or is not a replicant. All the indications that he is can't overcome his belief that, because he is identical to human, he may be human. Back in 2019, Deckard is sent to Tyrell Corp as a setup to meet Rachel. They have been made as each other's perfect mate. As planned, they fall in love and will later have the first replicant child. Tyrell attends what should be a routine empathy test because the empathy being tested is not Rachel, but Deckard. Deckard is Tyrell's greatest creation. But Tyrell has underestimated his creations. In making replicants more human than human, he has also made them able to rebel against their maker. Then finally, we come to Blade Runner's moment of epiphany. When Deckard murders Pris in the Bradbury building, he still has no empathy. He is still a replicant. But as Rick Deckard watches Roy Batty die, he finally experiences true empathy, therefore becoming human. Roy Batty is the mythic image of man as machine. His famous speech articulates the existential reality of humanity that believes itself machine. We will be washed away like tears in rain. But Roy is also given the Christian symbols of the nail and the dove. Roy, at his death, isn't just a toaster tossed in the garbage or a smartphone being rebooted. Whatever Roy is, for us, he is more than machine. And Deckard also experiences a kind of Christian transubstantiation, a transformation of spirit that also transforms the flesh from replicant to human. So the iconic Tears in Rain scene is a fusion of man as machine with man as eternal soul, via the experience of empathy. Do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep has no equivalent to Blade Runner's Tears in Rain scene. Deckard simply finds the Andes' hideout and kills them. In Philip K. Dick's novel, Rick Deckard experiences no epiphanic transubstantiation into true humanity. Blade Runner gives us hope that we can find a transcendent spiritual meaning in being machines. Philip K. Dick pushes our mythic image of man as machine to its breaking point. In his novel, Philip K. Dick introduces two more ideas to help us understand empathy. Mood organs are machines that allow humans to numb our empathy by selecting which emotions we want to experience. Because their world is a post-nuclear war wasteland, most humans choose pleasure and positive emotions. I mean, that's nothing like what most of us do, scrolling our smartphones while fascism and climate apocalypse ravage our reality. In a classic scene of PKD absurdism, Deckard is horrified to learn his wife has been dialing emotions appropriate to events because she can still experience empathy. Empathy boxes are gateways into the religion of mercerism. By gripping the box's handles, humans enter into the endless suffering of Wilbur Mercer as he climbs a barren.
I mean, serotonin, it probably, from the point of view of their creators, it's probably better than the alternative of Roy Batty.
Hill was being struck with stones. But Mercer is also shown to be an actor in a drama. The empathy of mercerism is actually like the Christian faith it satirizes, grandiose, theatrical, and fake. Real suffering and empathy aren't a drama in which we are the protagonist. Deckard's desire for a sheep was selfish, not empathic. When Deckard experiences a brief fusion with Mercer, it's not empathy, but ego. One way to read PKD's novel is as pure nihilism. There is no empathy. It's just a construction of human machines, applied selectively and selfishly to make us feel better about being machines. So, yes, Deckard is a replicant. Not because he was popped out of an amniotic sac just hours before Blade Runner begins, although he probably was, but Deckard is a replicant because he does not have empathy. And the only
Yes, Larry, but, British.
real difference between a human and a replicant is empathy. But replicants do have empathy if they live long enough, but humans do not have empathy however long we live. Ah! This is what we call Philip K. Dick logic. PKD deliberately sets up these internally inconsistent logic loops. A equals B, but B does not equal A. C equals A plus B, but not B plus A. A plus B minus C equals C. To make us think about contradiction. In Android's dream of electric sheep, this is the contradiction between two...
Serotonin, have you ever seen Split Second? One of my absolute favorite Rutger Hauer movies.
Ideas. The idea of man as machine and the idea of empathy.
Not just a dick, Elron, but a Philip K. Dick.
Today, many or most of us believe both in man as machine and in empathy without dealing with the profound contradiction between these two ideas. This thought experiment in Philip K. Dick logic pushes the contradiction up to the surface so it can no longer be ignored. Because it's from the contradiction of empathy and the machine that we can find a better answer to what is human. Do androids dream?
I mean, to be fair, Textillion, all dicks are superior to Andy Dick.
Of electric sheep forces us, via PKD logic, to consider the contradictions inherent.
So for those of you who don't know, since I brought it up, Split Second. Let's do the trailer. 1992.
I unloaded a full clip 450 Magnum, point blank. He disappeared.
He can hear its heartbeat.
Where'd he go?
He knows it's out there.
Somebody must have seen something.
He knows what it can do.
You telling me there's something running around loose in this city, ripping the hearts out of people and eating them?
Maybe he eats them for breakfast.
Now, it's really pissing him off.
Faster!
And his new partner
I work alone.
makes two.
Paranoid people with guns are a menace to society.
You'd be paranoid too if you had a dipshit like this following you.
Lack of manners and serial homicide.
Oh, terrific.
It has no motive.
The only thing we know for sure is that he's not a vegetarian. It has the DNA structure of all its victims.
It gives no warning.
You ready to die?
But one thing's for certain.
We gotta get bigger guns!
It ain't no pushover.
Two, yeah!
Bingo!
We want to get to Cannon Street.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do.
Boy, are you pushy.
I wouldn't say this thing thinks it's safe. I'd say it is.
And one of the things I love about the setting of the movie is this flooded London, because global warming has melted the ice caps, so sea level rise, and with it being close to the Thames, it's like there's portions of London that like just have a bit of water always because they're like in the fucking water. It's so cool.
Rat bastard!
Satan, he's a deep shit.
Get out of there! 5 seconds! Okay, 4, 3, 2.
Rutger Hauer. Split Second.
Nice timing.
split second.
It's just fantastic 90s action movie kind of fucking. If machines were built to perfectly mimic humans, does it really matter how people perceive them? How is it different from humans trying to distinguish between genders? In the end, both humans and replicants are still experiencing life. Michael, I feel you. I just know that I watched a goddamn video from a goddamn alleged reporter, just with an absolute knowledge that is never going to happen. And it's so fucking irritating.
In seeing men as machines, contradictions that turn on the question of empathy. Blade Runner and its iconic Tears in Rain scene shows us the human in the machine in the human. Blade Runner 2049 goes beyond both book and original movie with an entirely new answer to what is human, and forges a new mythic image of the human from the ideas of Carl Jung. Learn more about that here.
The first part of your question, yes, I do. The second part, I don't know. Right? There's a long way to go. And it's really a question of capability and like and all that. So I don't know Serotonin. Feel like I vaguely recall that movie on like TV at some point. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was that kind of movie. Like in the States, it would have been like on TBS or TNT kind of movie. You know what I mean? Up next, Cold Fusion. Forget AI, the robots are coming. See, it's a narrative thread. They're not something that's even worthy of debate when it comes to rights. Actually said that in public, in front of everyone.
Excuse me, do you have a Band-Aid? Because I scraped my knee falling for you. Can I get your number for emergency contact?
Yes.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. As far as technology goes, artificial intelligence is currently at the center of conversation. But while everyone has been focused on that, in just the last 3 years, the field of robotics has experienced a silent revolution. There's been advancements like I've never seen before, especially
not really a silent revolution because we've been watching it, and that's why you should follow this channel. And if you enjoy following this channel, you should subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you should also subscribe. We actually got, again, for the second time, past 200 viewers, or 200 subscribers on the YouTube channel.
in the field of general-purpose humanoid consumer robots. This is the world's first humanoid robot Olympics in Beijing, China. With robots from over 16 competing nations, events included soccer, track and field, and martial arts. Although they're essentially Schadenfreude entertainment for us humans, this event is just the latest demonstration of the sudden proliferation of humanoid robots.
Why Schadenfreude, you fucking
robots? Meanwhile, American company Figure is using AI and advanced dexterity to demonstrate that humanoid robots can indeed do useful work. From sorting packages to folding clothes and working at the BMW factory in 20-hour shifts.
Helix, a humanoid robot by Figure, showcases its ability to perform household chores by autonomously loading laundry into a washing machine.
In this episode, we'll explore the latest in the field of robotics, complete with my interview with Carolina Parada, head of robotics at Google DeepMind. So why am I doing a video on humanoid consumer robotics? Really, I just find robotics technology fascinating. Yes, a lot of people do talk about further societal or social long-term implications that may or may not happen, but sometimes it's fun to just think of the technology in a vacuum. What makes humanoid robots so interesting to me is that, unlike industrial robots which do pre-programmed repetitive tasks over and over again, humanoid robots, on the other hand, must adapt to and navigate dynamic environments in real time. It's a
I've never seen Hobo with a Shotgun, but yes, it's a movie about a hobo with a shotgun.
challenge that's extremely hard to solve. This episode will be split into 3 parts. The first section.
We know, Elron. You talk about the ones with wheels on them or the ones without wheels on them? The ones that can go off-road, the ones that can stand on their hind legs? The ones that can do backflips?
We'll look at how far we've come. The second segment will focus on American robots, and the third section will be the Chinese robot revolution. We'll look at the top companies, how their tech works, and the interesting different approaches from the Americans and Chinese. So with that out of the way, let's get straight into it.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
I think you'll agree that Arok is amazingly lifelike in appearance. Arok is 6 feet 8 inches tall, weighs 275 pounds, and even has a small vocabulary.
As many watchers of this channel would know, I've done a few videos on the state of the art of robotics since 2018, and we've come a long way in just the past 10 years. These are some robot finalists from the DARPA challenge in 2015. They were slow, unstable, and cost an arm and a leg.
And I remember the DARPA challenge and, like, you know, people downplaying, oh, look, the self-driving vehicles can't even, follow the course or whatever. And now look where we are. But yeah, no, like, full self-driving will totally never happen, I'm sure. I'm sure you're fine. I'm sure you have nothing to worry about.
Sometimes up to $500,000. They were mostly bespoke designs from researchers.
It's easy to design a robot that can handle a specific task. There's police bots for bomb disposal and things like that. Where we aren't is general purpose robots that can do a lot of things really well.
Back then, getting a human robot to even walk was ridiculously hard, and for obvious reasons, the consumer robot market didn't even exist. In fact, it was a futuristic but distant dream. Now, today, for under $6,000, you can pick up this humanoid robot that can do acrobatics. Sure, it's a bit wobbly, but come on, you gotta
Again, 2019.
Reasons, the consumer robot market didn't even exist. In fact, it was a futuristic but distant dream. Now, today, for under $6,000, you can
2025.
pick up this humanoid robot that can do acrobatics. Sure, it's a bit wobbly, but come on, you got to admit that it's a feat to mass produce this. The robot is called the R1, and it was released by the Chinese company Unitree a few months ago. Many of you may not have heard of this robot or its company, and it is robots like this that showcase that the price drop in the lower end of humanoid robots has largely gone unnoticed. But if you're looking for something more capable, you can look towards Tesla's Optimus platform. When it launches, whenever that may be, it's said to be aiming for a
18 months tops.
Cost of less than $20K, but some estimates believe that it'll be closer to $60K based on the bill of materials. So why are these companies doing this? Well, one reason is that the global humanoid robot market is projected to reach $38 billion by 2035. So, there's potentially a lot up for grabs. But wait.
That gentleman in the orange and white shorts is Kai Cenat. I too am a streamer on Twitch. Okay, red. It kind of looks orange it looks orange on this screen. It looks more red on this screen. Kai Cenat is one of the biggest streamers on Twitch. He also shut down Times Square by doing a PS5 giveaway. That was cool.
Have you ever stopped to wonder, why are humanoid robots suddenly everywhere? Well, the timing of this explosion in popularity of both humanoid robots
No, fair. I know about Kai Cenat because of Paradigm Shift, right? Like that's how I got there. But yeah, at one point in time, I think he had 600,000 subscriptions.
And generative AI isn't just a coincidence. Think about it. Generative AI systems can see and recognize objects, images, text, or video, and even understand spoken natural language. We call this multimodality.
I mean, it wasn't really a riot. It was a bunch of people wandering around, right? You know, they all kind of showed up in the same spot. I don't recall a riot.
Using the robot's cameras and microphones, in combination with LLMs, we can then get a crude approximation of human intelligence.
Okay. So one thing, Larry, whenever you get a lot of people walking around, whatever your percentage of people who like to cause property damage, they are going to be there and they are going to do stuff. The second thing is how much is a lot of property damage. Kai's Mafiathon 3.0 has literally been on all month as we speak, one of the biggest streams of the year. There you go.
Intelligence, or at least the mimicking of it anyway. This helps the robots see and understand their environment better than has ever been possible before.
And then there's that, Chef.
So we all know generative AI systems may get some things wrong when you're trying to extract precise information from a query, but for robotics, it's good enough, and it's been key in making the concept of humanoid robots drastically more feasible. Robot foundation models built on transformer neural networks, combined with the generative AI revolution, allows robots to perform with a lower failure rate, even though real-world training data is scarce. We'll get to how that's done a bit more when we talk about America's efforts in the consumer robot space. But now, as we move along in our journey, if we turn our attention to the state-of-the-art that's produced at scale, that would have to be Figure 02's robot, with 100,000 robots planned to ship in the next 4 years. And don't worry, we'll get to Boston Dynamics later. But the thing is, their robots really aren't for sale, at least in mass production numbers. Okay, so although I've done a video on Figure before, let's briefly zoom in here to just understand what the state of the art is. The first of the American robots is Figure 02. This robot can recognize and respond to natural language to carry out actions. Its joints are powered by custom motors, giving the ability to carry up to 25 kilograms or 55 pounds. Each hand features 16 degrees of freedom, and each finger has integrated motors and sensors. It features 6 onboard cameras for 3D perception and environment mapping. It of course has speakers and microphones. And Figure 02 has a 360-degree field of view, and that's thanks to cameras in its head, torso.
Do you have a 360-degree field of view?
And back. And if you're wondering about a rough release date, CEO Brett Adcock said in a podcast, quote, "Within the next 3 years, we'll definitely have robots piloting at homes," end quote. Figure 02's brain was powered by OpenAI, but the company switched to an in-house AI in 2025. Now, Figure's robots are powered by the Helix system, a system that they're calling a Vision Action Model, or VLA. VLA is a proprietary system they're calling a Vision Action Model, or VLA.
I will dunk on Cold Fusion.
VLA is a proprietary system which combines visual perception, language comprehension, and motor control into one. This means that it can understand.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
Yo, what up, Raiders? What up, TN? What up, A New Day? What up, Swordfish Oboe? This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. I'm Globus the Elder. I talk about AI, automation, robots, and future tech, and we are currently watching a video about robots. What up, Shiny? What up, Only Rose Now? Welcome in. If that sounds interesting to you, you should definitely hang out, and you should definitely follow. What up, Morgana Dreamfire? Great name. Love that name. Baby, I just met you. This is crazy. Is my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. Back to the video about robots. The robots are coming.
And scenes, natural language instructions, and translate this data into real-time continuous robot actions. Each robot has 2 GPUs with 2 systems. System number 2 plans tasks at about 8 operations per second, while System 1 executes them at 200 operations per second. The company claims that each robot should be able to pick up nearly any small household object, even if it hasn't seen it before. The AI brain, Helix, was trained on 500 hours of robot teleoperation episodes, each paired with auto-generated text descriptions. For those who aren't aware, teleoperation is basically when a human controls a robot. The pairing of the text descriptions with the teleoperated video allows the robot to link language instructions with the right robot actions. As for walking, Figure employed reinforcement learning in simulated environments, training thousands of virtual robots to walk naturally. On board are NVIDIA RTX-based GPU modules with 3 times more AI computing capability than Figure 01.
Take care towards night. I hope everything has been going as well as I could hope. I have been working hard and I haven't been able to catch anyone's streams, but like barely anyone's. But yeah, no, every so often I've seen you doing some IRL stuff lately, and that's super cool.
Battery runtime is about 5 hours per charge. In recent demos, Figure 02 loaded towels, crouched to load a washing machine, and more.
I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow.
And this was a blatant showcase of early domestic competence. Interesting. Before we look at the rest of the robots from China and the US, we should ask ourselves a question.
Sir, Didymus Engiwok Fezik. I expect to see those robots doing laps around the mall soon. Yes. I don't know how to pronounce that. Benoisia? Welcome in. Enjoy your lurk.
Is it necessary to have humanoid robots at all? Why not just make machines purpose-built for specific tasks?
The Figure ones are estimated to cost between 20 and 30,000 at this point. There are Chinese robots as low as $6,000, but it's not clear whether that's for a remote controlled robot or something more autonomous. I would believe it's more a remote control robot, and that having something more autonomous is still not available. But China leads everybody in the world in robotic technology, and if anybody's going to put out a affordable fully autonomous robot made, it's going to be them. You got IP banned on Spotify. How do you even do that? What did you do?
Well, either approach is equally valid, but humanoid robots do have some advantages. The humanoid form is more socially acceptable.
There you go. But if you used a VPN, how were they able to ban your IP?
Elder care, for example, patients would rather, well, a human, but after that, they'd probably find...
Also good to know, though, like, you might want to turn off your VPNs if you're using Spotify, people.
Find something that looks more human, more relatable, than a box on wheels or an industrial arm. On the practical side, humanoids are designed to operate in environments built for humans, climbing stairs, opening doors, and using tools, things like that. So, in theory, this means that you don't have to rebuild your home, office, or factory for these robots to work. But is the humanoid form always the most practical solution? No, not necessarily. A robot with wheels, for example, is faster and more energy efficient on flat surfaces. A specialized arm could be stronger and more precise in a factory. But what humanoid robots do have is versatility and familiarity. For many applications, the trade-off might be worth it. For others, maybe not. In the United States, Tesla's Optimus robot has demonstrated tasks from sorting blocks to performing yoga poses. Of course, Kim Kardashian has one and was playing rock, paper, scissors with it. A more recent demo shows Optimus taking out the trash, sweeping and vacuuming, also using paper towels, stirring.
Always take Optimus videos with a grain of salt, because a lot of what they do is actually teleoperation, which is fine, right? Like, I'm not against the idea of teleoperation and teleoperation for training. It's just Tesla has a habit of like obfuscating and hiding that, which is problematic for me.
A pot, opening cabinets and closing curtains. And I think you can see the trend here. At least if the demos are anything to go by, it seems like these robots are destined for the home. So for those online who say, all I wanted in the future was for AI to do the boring chores while I handle the creative stuff, well, you may just have your wish now. The Optimus robot was trained using the same neural network used in Tesla's full self-driving system. It was
You choose what that means to you.
also trained on first-person videos of humans performing these actions. Tesla employs a simulation-based learning approach, referring to this as, quote, digital dreams. And this gives the advantage of training Optimus exclusively in virtual environments, generating a massive amount of training data without any physical wear.
None of these robots are Optimus.
To this as, quote, digital dreams. And this gives the advantage of training Optimus exclusively in virtual environments,
I can't remember the name of this company here. This is Digit. Digit is my favorite because Digit has backward legs, and I think that's adorable. It lends itself to particular types of movement, and this is the Unitree model. But none of these are Optimus, which is interesting.
Generating a massive amount of training data without any physical wear. Perhaps most impressively is the fact that every Optimus unit contributes to fleet learning, meaning that the entire network continuously improves as more robots gain experience. Interestingly, during the training process, Tesla employees wearing motion capture suits perform tasks such as walking, lifting weights, and manipulating objects, all for the purpose of humanizing training data. Over 50 operators have contributed hundreds of hours of mimic data, essential for robot learning. Currently, inside the bot are AMD and NVIDIA GPUs, but Tesla is aiming to develop its own in-house AI5 and AI6 chips.
Okay.
Tesla aims to begin production of 5,000 to 10,000 units in 2025.
Okay. Where are you with that, Elon?
With aspirations for 50,000 units by 2026. The battery is said to last a full day of operation. And now we come to the robotic goat.
Absolutely the goat.
"10 years ago, Boston Dynamics' Atlas robot was far and away the most advanced humanoid robot the world had ever seen. Atlas is known for its agility, from crawling, jumping, and rolling to straight-up parkour.
Sir Didymus, Elon is apparently trying to interfere with UK politics at this point in time. So, who knows what he's up to? Excuse me. The original Atlas was not autonomous. The original Atlas was hydraulic. Hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. The original Atlas was hydraulic, which comes with its own problems, and the entire movement had to be like programmed beginning to end. New Atlas uses electric motors and can act autonomously. The history of videotape formats and DVDs are any indication, it's all going to come down to a specific industry and their adoption for how this stuff progresses. True. This is the original Atlas that did a hell of a number of tricks and also features in the dancing robot video. Uh 28843 Forg. I stink. AI will still be worse because they could fabricate the news. If a robot is not bulletproof, I think the average person should be able to take it out. Sure. Those are opinions you can definitely have. These robots are impressive, but I doubt insurance will cover them. It's already a struggle to qualify for an adaptive vehicle, even when you clearly need one. Insurers tend to treat these technologies as luxury items rather than essential tools that could genuinely improve quality of life for disabled people. Yes. As always, you are correct. Elon's not getting a warm reception here at all. I can't say much more as somebody likely to be TOS at him sometime soon, I suspect. We got enough pricks in politics without importing them. True.
In 2024, in the wake of increasing competition, the company switched.
This is Atlas 2. Or just Atlas, but like the new version of Atlas. They don't call it Atlas 2 as far as I'm aware.
Atlas's actuators from hydraulics to fully electric. On board, there's 3 AI models spread across 3 local computers. Now with improved 3D vision, an NVIDIA Jetson, and Isaac GR00T hardware for real-time AI model execution, let's check out what Atlas is capable of now.
You're watching what could be a hugely significant step towards robots that are much better at navigating the messy real world and that can learn new skills very quickly. Atlas, a humanoid robot from Boston Dynamics, recently learned to both walk and grab items using just a single artificial intelligence model. Boston Dynamics, together with the Toyota Research Institute, developed the generalist AI model, which learns to control both the robot's arms and its legs from a range of example actions. This is different from what you may have seen previously. Normally, robots would use one AI model to walk, another to jump, and another to grasp items. Most models also lack the ability to adapt. The model used to control this Atlas is both more general and it is showing some tantalizing signs of emergent behavior, like the ability to instinctively recover when it drops an item. This is a lot more exciting than it might seem. While there's work to do, one of the researchers involved says the evidence so far suggests that the approaches used to develop large language models will also work for robots. It's changing everything, he says. Just as LLMs fed large amounts of text data, sometimes
Birian357, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, welcome in. I can't wait till I can buy this robot. You can buy it right now. It's only $1 million.
Exhibit unexpected abilities, like the ability to code. Roboticists hope that a similar strategy will produce robots that exhibit a lot of surprising new skills when getting things done.
In August of 2025, Boston Dynamics revealed their latest intelligence efforts. In collaboration with the Toyota Research Institute, they're creating what they call a large behavioral model. Here's how it works. Collect behavioral data from teleoperation and in simulation. Process, annotate, and curate the data in such a way that it can be incorporated into machine learning. Train a neural network using all of the data across all of the tasks. And finally,
I would like to point out again that Cold Fusion decided to name this particular video "Forget AI, the robots are coming." And then this.
Evaluation. I could talk a bit more about how it works, but I think it would be more interesting to see it in action. Here's a video of Atlas actively understanding natural language and performing actions.
I love those hands.
It can also fold chairs, tie a rope, or stack cubes. Today, the Atlas robot has been put to work. One of its first jobs is to be deployed in the South Korean company Hyundai Motor Group's production sites. Its job is to perform repetitive tasks in place of humans. Interestingly, Boston Dynamics was bought by Hyundai in 2021. So as we continue, it's interesting to note that the robot's brains, that is, the AI chips and software, constitute approximately 80% of a humanoid robot's value. And as mentioned, the US maintains a significant lead here. But the AI component of this also gives rise to something interesting. Google's AI, Gemini, has been plopped into robotics hardware.
Apptronics A1. That was the other robot. I couldn't remember the name of the company.
Systems, and somehow it works with very little tuning. I went and saw it myself at Google's I/O event earlier this year. At the event, I also had an interview with Carolina Parada, Senior Director and Head of Robotics at Google DeepMind.
Yeah, so I lead the Google DeepMind robotics team, and I've been working with Google DeepMind robotics for about 7 years. Yeah, we're super.
I don't know if they bought it entirely or just have a major interest, but yes. Short answer, yes.
We're excited about this release. We have been working in AI for robotics since the team started about 10 years ago. So we've always believed that AI will really transform what's possible for robotics. So what you're seeing in that booth is Gemini Robotics.
I think that we covered that before you started attending regularly, Chef.
Which is sort of our latest, most exciting model. And it's a visual language action model. It's essentially enabling the robot to see what
since you're at your PC, if you look at the down there part, I would like to point out that I am the democratically represented Minister of the Culture here on Earth. Point that out, Oran.
sees in front of it, understand your request, and then take action directly. So that means Gemini is actually moving the robot. And what's cool about that is that you can then take all of that multimodal intelligence that is already there and just simply extend it to a new language of actions in this case. I would say we've always believed in this mode of having AI just understand the world and transfer that.
I often lapse back into Hyundai, but I love to pronounce Hyundai. Yeah, as soon as I found out about the culture, Elrod, I was like, oh, that sounds fucking lovely. We should do one of those.
Into actions, but we were not really seeing signs of life until maybe around 3 years ago. And then 3 years ago, all of a sudden, we started applying LLMs, and now it was understanding semantics. Now you could understand when you say, I'm thirsty, and that was all you have to say. We can now leverage the wave of improvement that's coming from foundation models. We just get that for free. A lot of what you saw today, we didn't work even that hard to get. It just flew out. Gemini today is the best model at understanding the physical world. We are working very hard to make it even stronger at understanding the physical world and then be applied directly to robotics.
The different strategies for the US and China when it comes to humanoid robots plays on both nations' strengths. America is leading in robot intelligence and quality. Companies like OpenAI, Boston Dynamics, and NVIDIA have all come up with clever ways to effectively give robots AI brains. China, on the other hand, is doing the same, but they're also getting into mass production pushed by the state.
This move. It is both wonderful and terrifying at the same time. Just
hand is doing the same, but they're also.
He looks so serious.
Getting into mass production pushed by the state. This means that they can pump out robots much faster and with lower cost and ever-increasing capabilities. While America still leads, let's take a look at the East to see what's happening. But first, a word from today's sponsor. Now with the rise of AI and robots, many are taking matters into their own hands. They're starting businesses or going solo as freelancers. In 2023, Americans filed 5.5 million new business applications, the highest on. While America leads in software, innovation and capabilities, China is
Again, I like to dunk on cold fusion.
going for scale and cost effectiveness. From the iPhone to electric cars, over the past 20 years, the country in the Far East has gained the capacity to make advanced hardware at rapid scale. As the, quote, world's factory, China already benefits from a vast supply chain and streamlined production. The country has been the world's largest industrial robot maker for years, with sales reaching 90,000 units as far back as 2016, and accounted for 30% of the global market that year, so they were more than prepared when it came to the humanoid robot boom. The International Federation of Robotics reported that over half of all robots sold globally in 2023 were made in China, and that number has surely grown since. The total value of humanoid robots produced in China is expected to reach approximately $616 million this year. It seems that in China, most robots are being used for entertainment purposes. Some do work, and one can even change its own battery. But as for the entertainment bots, you can't deny that it's pretty fun to watch. From robot boxing matches, to a robot soccer league, to a robot Olympics. In a technical sense, these robots may not be as impressive as the cutting edge, but here's the thing, they're ubiquitous. There's videos of children in China playing with their humanoid robots, and no one bats an eyelid anymore. Chinese robotics firms like Unitree, Agibot, Galbot, Engine AI, and Liju Robotics are using China's growth in manufacturing to their advantage. These companies are popping up everywhere. Engine AI's PM01 performs front flips, while the SE01 walks remarkably like a human. Robot Extra's XBot L famously climbed the Great Wall of China. There's way too many Chinese companies to go into detail about each one, so let's just focus on the most popular. Unitree's G1 model displays impressive balance, can do martial arts, and dance. They're the most viral robots at the moment due to their relatively low cost. The G1 can walk, run at speeds reaching 7 kilometers an hour, jump, climb stairs, and even fold for easy transport. Though this reviewer laments that even though its movements are impressive, it can't really do anything useful. It's likely because he got the cheapest version, but it's also because the G1 is more of a research and development platform. It's not really consumer ready just yet. And on the other hand, the American robots aren't in the hands of everyday people, so we could be equally disappointed when the time comes for their release. The G1 is mostly remote controlled to execute pre-programmed actions. Like its American counterparts, the G1 learns both from demonstration and reinforcement learning, and this enables it to refine its balance and movements over time. As for the physical brain, most of the grunt comes from NVIDIA Jensen Origin modules. This enables the G1 to handle real-time AI perception processing. The 9000 mAh battery will give you about 2 hours of operation. When programmed by professionals, the G1 has been used in factories for tasks like assembly. Also, it's been demonstrated in medical settings via remote control. Units like the Uncle Bot have gained viral attention for its human-like behaviors. As for a less fun use, in Indonesia, they're being used to fight crime. Kind of. So moving forward, an advantage that these companies have over US firms is massive state subsidization. For example, in January of 2024, the city of Beijing launched a 1.4.
I mean, you don't have to buy clothes for the robot, but you can buy clothes for the robot. And at least Americans are notorious for buying clothes for like animals. So it makes sense that we would buy nifty outfits for our robots.
$4 billion state-backed robotics fund.
And apparently the Chinese do too.
In July, Shanghai also announced a $1.4 billion fund specifically for humanoid robots. You can easily see how that kind of money can give a bunch of companies a head start. China's strategic manufacturing has led to a flood of robot patent filings. 5,688 patents compared to the US's 1,483 over.
Wait. I was told that the Chinese are like communists. Communists don't have patents.
5 years. And China as a whole is taking robotics seriously. Part of the Made in China 2025 policy aims to increase global market share of Chinese-made robots from 31% to 50%. Government initiatives like the Robot Industry Development Plan from 2016 to 2020 help establish the infrastructure and expertise now being leveraged for humanoid robot production. And this highlights the major difference between the US and China. In the US, capital investment and the private sector are leading the charge. It results in better quality, but slower time to market. China is just blasting robots out all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And also, here's a question. If a functional humanoid robot got down to say $2,000 would you buy one? That day will come sooner than you think. Let me know in the comments.
Here's the thing. If it got down to $2,000, this device is about $1,000, more or less, give or take. So how long after the robot got down to $2,000 before you would see companies selling you the robot as part of a subscription plan where you paid a monthly fee, part of which went toward paying the robot, part of it went towards the ongoing service to power the robot through the AI and whatnot, and so on and so forth. And then you would upgrade, because that would drive a lot of funding back into the system, which would, for a time, create newer and better robots until eventually, getting to minor improvements over time once they reached some sort of capacity. And once it hits that point, human labor's days are very, very numbered. Just by the sheer volume of training data they'd get from the massive number of robots broadly available and broadly walking around in the Detroit scenario. Yeah, you get it. Oh. Well, this was fun. What day is today? It is Saturday. So, again, there may be a stream tomorrow. There will be a stream on Monday. So make sure you're following. Make sure you have your notification for this channel turned on. Please stick around for the raid. You know how this works. Taking a look. Oh, philosophy. We're going to raid philosophy friend Ivan Neo, who has been on the stream 3 times to have conversations, been supporting the channel for quite some time, and you can find all those conversations on the YouTube channel. But you should absolutely follow Ivan. Ivan is great. And I look forward to seeing y'all again, either tomorrow or Monday. And in the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you've forgotten. Always remember that Shuggy loves you. So do I. Be great.